Hadley Davis, and I'm going to read The Tale of the Three Trees. Once upon a mountaintop, the three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. "I want to hold treasure," he said. "I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world." The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. "I want to be a strong sailing ship," he said. "I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world." The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. "I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all," she said. "I want to grow so tall that when people stop and look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world." Years passed, the rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, 3 woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first beautiful tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest," thought the first tree. "I shall hold wonderful treasure." The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. "Now I shall sail mighty waters," thought the second tree. "I shall be a strong ship fit for kings." The third tree fell. Her heart sank. Her heart sank when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered. With a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop, but the busy carpenter was not thinking about his treasure chest. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river. He was taken to a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumber yard. "What happened?" the once tall tree wondered. "All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God." Many, many days and nights passed, and the 3 trees nearly forgot about their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. "I wish I could make a cradle for him," her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone in sturdy wood. "This manger is beautiful," she said, and suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into a lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun, and suddenly the second tree knew it was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when the soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on the Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong, and every time they thought of the third tree, they would think of God. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world.
A star shone in the night, as bright as the day. The shepherds were watching their flocks with care when a host of angels appeared in the air, proclaiming the Son of God had been born to deliver our souls on that cold Christmas morn. You will find him wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger while the cattle lows. A few short decades later, he died on a cross. Without his sacrifice, we would all be lost. So as you're running around buying gifts and treats, have a big party when your family meets, maybe next year. Stop and remember while we celebrate this day, it's not about gifts and food and games to play. I think of that, we all have enough. When you think about it, it's all just stuff. The gift of love is what Jesus gave, and salvation the day he arose from the grave. To love each other is all that he asks. I know that at times that can be a big task. Just humble yourself and look all around. I think what you will find will be profound. There are many who can only afford the gift of love. No presents, no tree with a star up above. Look into your life and you will find you are blessed by many who love you. That gift is the best. So when it comes time to bless your meal, ask for your family to be blessed as well. Not with gifts or money or material stuff, but that love and tolerance will be enough. Remember the loved ones who cannot be there, but rejoice they're in heaven and not suffering here. And when you see someone who is down and out, don't put them down or have any doubt. Just do what you think Jesus would do. Give what you can to help them get through. If they misuse it, that's between them and God. In Jesus' eyes, you have done your job. God bless you and enjoy your family Christmas Day. May peace, love, and happiness come your way.
So I didn't get to share this morning. We tried. So this is the legend of the candy cane, if you haven't heard the story. And for those of you who don't understand, when they talk about the legend of the candy cane, that means the story that goes along with why they believe it. We talk about legends of other things. And in the past, long time ago, it's how they tried to explain things. So I'm not reading the whole story, but this is the legend of the candy cane. And it starts off about this gentleman who comes into a town, and he's on a horse, and he comes into a town, he finds a storefront, and it's boarded up, and he says, this is perfect. And all through November, he goes through and he's working in there, and everybody in town is looking at him and looking in the window and watching and trying to figure out because he doesn't talk to anybody, because no one talks to him, because he's a stranger, and they try and figure out what he's doing there and what business is he going to start. And, the mayor hoped he was a doctor, and the young wives hoped he was a tailor to make beautiful dresses. The farmers hoped he was a trader. But the children had the strongest, deepest wish of all, wish they could not tell their parents. A deep, quiet, secret wish that none of them said out loud. No one spoke to him. They just watched him and wondered and wished. But one day, this girl couldn't stand it, and she had to talk to him, and she knocked on the door and said, my name is Lucy, and do you need some help? And he's like, absolutely. And she looked in, and there's just boxes and boxes and crates, and she was kind of disappointed, but she said, okay, I'll help you. And he's like, let's unpack some crates. And so she starts unpacking, and she doesn't know what she's getting into, and she opens the first box, and it is a glass jar. and she starts opening glass jars in all different sizes and kinds, tall and round and squat jars, and jars with lids, jars without lids. And then he comes out and he says, okay, now that we have all the jars unpacked, we need to put something in them. And he opens it up, and it was boxes and crates of candy. And she was absolutely excited. And so she had all this different candy, and she was helping him. And the gentleman said that his name was John Sonneman, and it's Sonneman's Candy Store. So they're going through and looking at all these candies. And she gets to the very last crate, and it was a candy that Lucy had never seen before. And she said, what is this? And he said, this is a candy cane. And it's a very special Christmas candy. And he says, what letter does it look like? Well, if you hold it the right way. You're looking at it the right way. That way. Sorry. And it looks like a J. Well, yes, it's for Jesus, who was born on Christmas Day. And then he turned it over. He said, what does this look like? And she said, I know it looks like a shepherd's staff. And who were the first to find out about Jesus' birth? Well, the shepherds in the field, watching over their flocks by night. But why are there stripes? Lucy asked him. And he said, well, the prophet Isaiah said, by his stripes we are healed. Before he died on the cross, Jesus was whipped. He bled terribly. The red reminds us of his suffering and his blood. But then the candy is white as well. When we give our lives to Jesus, his blood washes away our sins, making us white and pure as snow. And that is the story of the candy cane. And Lucy said, so is it a secret? And he said, well, no, it's a story, and we have to tell it to everyone. And so then Lucy and John went around to all the town folk and knocked on their doors and passed out candy canes and told them the story. And every town, and on Christmas Eve was the opening of the store, of the candy shop. And the point was that now everyone knew the story, and they came, and it wasn't because it was just the opening of the candy store, but they were sharing something more, something bigger, something better. On that Christmas Eve, they shared the story of the candy cane. They told of the miracle of Christ's birth, the misery of his death, and the mercy of his love.